Hello, welcome back to Friends with Cinefits. I am your host, Alex, and for this episode, I am joined by a very special guest. In the spirit of Valentine's Day, my girlfriend Alexus joined me to discuss Paul Thomas Anderson's Phantom Thread from 2017. I am excited that Alexis joined on this because this is the exact type of conversation that we would have had after watching a movie together. So I figured she would be the perfect guest for what I'm trying to do here. Similar to other episodes, we won't do full-on heavy spoilers, but if you haven't seen the movie, there is probably going to be some like minor spoilery thematic discussions. So just keep that in mind. Just a reminder to please like and subscribe on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you guys listen. Word of mouth and algorithms are the only way that I get new listeners. So please share it with anyone that you think might like it. I would really appreciate it. And if you want to leave me some feedback, the best way to do it is either the YouTube comments or by email with friendswithcinefits@gmail.com. So without further ado, here's our discussion on Phantom Thread, and thanks for tuning in. So, Phantom Thread, directed by Paul Thomas Anderson, came out in 2017. It has a 91% with the critics on Rotten Tomatoes and a 71% by the audience. So a 20% gap makes it perfect for this. Let's start with you. Why Phantom Thread? Like, why is this the movie that we are covering for your first soiree into the podcast? I don't know if that's the right word, but why Phantom Thread? Why not something else?
I guess for me, it kind of has a lot of things that I like in a movie. Like, it's pretty to look at. I like that the characters are sort of unlikable.
Mm-hmm.
I find that very interesting. It's technically a romance, and it's technically kind of a period piece as well.
Yeah.
So it has like all of the elements that I like in a movie, and it gets a little bit weird, which makes it more interesting.
Yeah. So this was was this your second time watching it?
Yeah, second time.
Okay. And same here. We both watched it in January of 2022,
Okay.
I believe. So 3 years after that, we're doing the rewatch. This is one that I like to play this game with you where I'm like, okay, let's watch a movie tonight. And then we go up to the movie room and I grab anywhere from 5 to 12 4Ks or Blu-rays and I read the back to you and you just kind of eliminate half of them and then I decide which one I really want to watch. This one's been in the mix a lot recently, but we never actually pulled the trigger on it until now because it fit the podcast pretty good. So I wanted to talk about Paul Thomas Anderson a little bit, the director. I think what's interesting about his filmography to me and why I'm excited that you're the guest for one of his movies is I think he's kind of hit or miss for you.
Yeah.
So his first movie in 1996 was Hard 8. I don't think either of us have seen that.
I'm not.
It's been on my list for a long time, but I think it's like set in a casino or something and about gambling, and I just don't have a lot of interest in that. But it's one I'll check out. Boogie Nights was in 1997. Have you seen Boogie Nights?
I feel like I've been sitting by you while you were watching Boogie Nights, maybe?
Okay. I don't know.
I'm not sure.
Okay. I've seen it once. I need to rewatch it. I remember going into it, I thought it was like it's going to be a movie about dancing like Saturday Night Fever or something like that. And it's a movie about porn. So it really took me for a loop. After that, 1999 Magnolia.
Oh, right.
With Tom Cruise, which I watched and you watched next to me, but you were not getting into it.
No, I don't think I got into it.
I think it's a long movie, so we didn't make it all the way through, and I don't think you expressed interest to watch it after that. But then in 2002, Punch Drunk Love.
Yeah, I do like that movie.
Yep, another romance. I just got the 4K and the Columbia Classics
Oh,
bundle
right.
thing, so we will have to watch that one again soon. 5 years after that, in 2007, There Will Be Blood.
Loved that
Uh,
movie.
Yeah, I think that's typically like one of the greatest movies of all time. Is like what people in our types of circles say. After that, we have The Master from 2012, which I
Right. Well,
don't think you liked.
I have an aversion to Joaquin Phoenix, so
Yes,
it
why
made
is
it
that?
difficult. Genuinely, it's just a feeling I get when I see him on the screen and I have to turn it off and look away.
That's interesting.
Like, honestly, nothing against him, don't know anything about him, but
Mhm.
anytime I see him in a movie, I think less of it.
That is true. Is there a movie by like with him that you do like?
I don't believe so.
You never watched Her?
I have watched her before I met
Oh,
you, and I did
and
not
you
like
did
it.
like it. Okay. Yeah, I don't think you liked Gladiator.
Did not.
Yeah, you loved Beau is Afraid.
That's one way to put it.
Yeah, you did not. Okay. In 2014, Paul Thomas Anderson and Joaquin Phoenix collaborated again with Inherent Vice, which might be another one I watched and you were next to me, or,
Yeah,
um,
I don't have
yeah.
any recollection of that.
Okay. And then he did Phantom Thread, this movie,
Mhm.
and then 2021 Licorice Pizza. How do you feel about Licorice Pizza?
I feel like I wanted it to be really good, but it just like left a little bit to be desired. I don't
I
know.
think I think I liked it when we saw it in theaters, and then I rewatched it whenever it came to
Okay.
streaming, and I didn't make it that far into it, and I was like, I don't know what I liked about this so much. It definitely doesn't feel as polished as a lot of
Yeah,
his other movies.
it's like more of just like a feeling than a movie. Like it doesn't like move through the
Yeah.
story in a way that like leaves you with something. It's more just
Mm-hmm.
like the whole thing is like a feeling of like being that age or whatever.
Yeah.
Which
And
can work, but it just didn't work for me.
yeah, I think that movie also has the struggle where it's kind of a love story too, but it's also kind of a forbidden love because the age gap is so different.
Yeah.
But Paul Thomas Anderson, his next movie, he has one that's supposed to come out this year,
Oh.
August 8th. This is the first I'm reading about this, starring Leonardo DiCaprio, Regina Hall, Sean Penn, Alana Haim, Wood Harris, Benicio del Toro.
Okay.
Cool. I'm in. Okay, so Phantom Thread. Yeah, just give me your quick and dirty version of it. How do you feel about it?
Well, I love the movie. Watching it a second time kind of solidified it. I just think that Alma is like just amazing. I love her character. I think she's so interesting. I think the relationship dynamic is super interesting. I love that it's like mutually destructive in a lot
Hmm.
of ways, and in different ways.
Something about their relationship that interests me is they have similar goals in the relationship. Like, I think Raymond Woodcock, the designer du jour, whatever his name is,
Reynolds,
Reynolds. What did I say?
Raymond,
Oh my gosh, same name if you don't think about it too much.
right?
Everybody
Exactly,
loves Reynolds.
Reynolds.
Um doesn't flow as well. He is basically in love with his mother and
Hmm.
he wants to be mothered.
Yeah.
Um and then I think at the end of it whenever she's talking and they like jump forward and she's like pushing a stroller, I think she just wants to be a mother and it takes them a while to realize that this is what they want their relationship to look like, and it ends up, I think, kind of twisting and turning in a weird way to get to like that outcome.
Yeah, I think like maybe even more than her wanting to be a mother, she wants to be in control. Like she wants to be needed and she
Mm-hmm.
wants to be in control, which kind of ties into her, dictating how he's physically feeling. to get her way with him, like emotionally. And I think he
Yeah.
wants to be in control either of himself, of his brand, of the women around him. But his is in a way that, like, at sometimes it feels like he almost doesn't understand that's what he wants. But I feel like it's very clear for her that she has some goals that
Hmm.
she would like to achieve.
I think on this watch, what was interesting to me was there's kind of a feud between the Alma character and his sister. What's her name? Do you remember?
Cyril?
Cyril. Cyril?
That was Cyril?
Cyril?
It's
What
like
a weird name.
Cyril? Cyril? I don't know.
Like, I think on my first watch, I didn't quite understand their power struggle, I guess is the word. Like, both of them want to control him. Like, Cyril is kind of his manager, but also, like, I think she's the one pulling the strings behind the curtain in some ways. And she doesn't want it to work out with Alma, and Alma's like, why are you listening to your sister so much? But what's interesting is none of that is really said or shown. It's just these subtle looks at the end of a scene where it just like hovers on Cyril for a while, and you can tell she's staring at Alma like, what the fuck is this girl like taking my spot in his life? Like, we got to get rid of her. I That stuck out to me this watch.
Yeah, I think, like, especially with the scene where Alma asks Cyril to have everyone leave so she can make him dinner, was a big, like, where you kind of see Cyril, like, not wanting to give away that power. But I do think later on in the movie, it kind of becomes clear that they both want to control different aspects of him. Like, Cyril wants to control the, like, clothing, the house,
Yeah.
or the design brand, and Alma kind of wants to just control him, like the person. And I think, like, there's that scene towards the end where he's asking Cyril to, like, take care of Alma for him, and she's standing there, and Cyril's like, "Thank you, Alma. That will be all." Like, you can tell that there's kind of an agreement between them that they can keep the balance between both of them and get to maintain the things that they want.
Yeah, you brought up the like dinner surprise scene between them earlier where she asked if Cyril could get everyone to leave. And I do feel like in that scene Cyril's like, I think she's trying to protect her. Like,
I
she's
think
trying
so
to be
too, a
like,
little bit.
it's not his birthday. Like, he does not like surprises. You don't know what you're doing. And then whenever Alma's like, yeah, I don't care. Like, this is what we're doing. This is how I want to do it. Then Cyril's like, okay, good luck. Like, that's not gonna work out. Their relationship dynamic is very interesting. I wanted to talk about their meet cute too between Alma and Reynolds.
Yeah.
Yeah. I saw that the first time since Daniel Day-Lewis is a method actor, like, they don't like to do read-throughs or anything like that. The first time that he shows up to act in character is their meet cute. So that
Oh, wow.
first scene.
Okay.
And so that was like how they met and the first time they acted together. I thought it was interesting that from the first time they meet each other, food is on their mind, and so is control, because he is ordering food. She's a waitress, and he names so many things that he wants to eat, and then he takes the order that she wrote down from him, and it's kind of like a test. Like,
Yeah,
can
it
you remember
definitely
this? Are
was.
you good enough?
The scene, it just sets up their relationship so perfectly, because a lot of the scenes where we see them interacting with each other, either having, like, a good time or a bad time, and the relationship, it involves food.
Mm-hmm.
Like later on with the breakfast, and then obviously her cooking for him at
Yep.
the country house. And I just love that, like, the kind of first time they exchange, I guess not numbers, she gives him the little slip, and it's like, for the
Yeah.
hungry boy. And I'm just like,
Which again says boy, like she's a mother. Like, yeah.
yeah, it is like asserting her control already in that situation too, even though like technically he is the one with like the power as the customer. Yeah, I think their relationship dynamic is so interesting, and the food stuff with it. I love it.
Yeah, so we tried not to talk about this after watching it and saving it for this, but we did talk a little bit about the similarities between this and Challengers, which came out last year. What was your thing about that? You like there was a review for Challengers. Do you remember what it was?
Oh yeah. Everything is sex except sex, which is tennis.
Yep.
Yeah, and so for this movie, it's everything is sex except sex, which is eating poison mushroom? Question mark.
Yeah, it's. I think it's eating. It's the way he dresses women too. Like I think when she sees him dressing another woman, she kind of gets jealous for some reason. I also think his driving is also sex. Like they have that scene at the beginning where they're driving and he's flying through the back roads, and it reminds me of A Clockwork Orange, the beginning of that, like the violence of it, and he has this like grin on it. I think that also kind of stands in for sex, like this wild ride that they were going on together. And then they get home, and instead of there being a sex scene, he dresses her. He makes a dress for her to wear. So I think it's very similar. Like it's almost, is it everything is sex except for sex, which is everything else other than sex. Like there is no sex in this, but mostly food, because there's so many things. Like at one point in this movie, they make eye contact, and she's like, does she say like, do you want to go get something to eat or whatever? And his like eyes light up, and then they go home and bang. Like, yeah, it's interesting.
It is.
So Daniel Day-Lewis trained professionally, I guess, as a dressmaker or whatever they're called.
Okay.
Before this, so that he could learn and get into character, I guess. I have a question for you. If you had to make a dress, like I give you all the materials right now, you can watch videos, you can read books, whatever. How long do you think it would take you to make an actual dress that someone could wear?
I don't know. I have no idea how long it should take to make a dress.
Yeah, me neither.
So
I'm thinking a month for me personally.
I was thinking like maybe like 3 days.
Wow. I'm impressed.
Well,
Yeah,
I don't know. It can't be that long. If it's a simple dress, at least, like there aren't that many seams.
I think it's up to you. I think I'm going big or going home.
Oh, like you want me to make a dress like he did in Phantom Thread? Like
no,
that would probably take me multiple years.
You make whatever dress you are comfortable putting your name on and putting out into the world.
Okay. I think if I had to make a dress, I could do it in 3 days. I would.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good to know. If I'm ever in a bind and need one, I know who I'm coming to. Reynolds Woodcock. I almost said Raymond again. Reynolds Woodcock is the best dressmaker in the country. This is like 1950s London. If you were going to be the Reynolds Woodcock of some other industry, I guess it could be dressmaking. Like, what are you choosing?
This is a hard question. Because technically he's not the best. People aren't coming to him anymore because he's not with the times.
One person doesn't go to him at the end.
It's insinuated that there are multiple people leaving.
I still think, like, maybe not the best, like, commercially or whatever, but, like, a master of an art form or something like that. Like, I don't think anyone denies his skills and abilities.
Right. Yeah, that's fair. Well, I have a little like current obsession that I've been kind of locked in on, and it has to do with like vintage leather handbags. So maybe I would want to be the Reynolds Woodcock of making and or restoring vintage leather bags.
Okay, that's a good answer.
Yeah, it seems like it's similar in a way. Like it's creating something, but it's not clothes. It doesn't have to like be dependent on a person or
No, that's a good answer. I did not expect you to pick that. I thought maybe you'd do like baking or writing or or something of the sorts.
I feel like with baking and writing, they are things that I already like. I don't know. It just seems like it's a lot of pressure. Like I don't really want to be him.
Yeah.
I don't want to be inside his mind. I don't want to have that put on me. So maybe something that's not a hobby that I already love. Something
Okay.
new.
That's a good answer. I think for me, if I'm following your train of thought, I think I would go like making furniture or something like that.
Oh yeah,
Like
that would be fun.
that would be fun.
Mhm.
And you know how much I hate like all the furniture we always buy because it doesn't fit me. Like the back's not tall enough, and
Yeah.
I'm weird with textures. Like I could
Mhm.
make some good furniture if I knew how and
Exactly.
took the time and effort into it. Okay, back we can go back to the movie. This has a 91% with the critics, 71% with the audience. What is it about this movie or maybe his other movies that you've seen as well? Like, why do you think these are more critically acclaimed than, I don't know if entertaining is the word, but like, what's preventing the average moviegoer from liking this movie or maybe his movies in general, in your opinion?
I think with this movie in particular, maybe it's just that there are like a lot of things left unsaid. Um, Not that it's necessarily like a quiet movie, but there are a lot of like pauses and space for you as the viewer to kind of put things together, or it's more about how they interact with each other, less than what they're saying to each other.
Mm-hmm.
And I think sometimes it can be difficult. Like it's not a movie that you can just like watch and necessarily like just enjoy for the sake of it. You kind of
Mm-hmm.
have to buy in a little bit, and maybe that is what keeps like an average movie watcher.
So what about that speaks to you, I guess? Like I've been thinking about with this podcast is like we're saying this movie we like it or critics like it because it's harder to understand or harder to follow. What makes you like that personally more than you think other people might?
That's a good question.
Is it your like pretentiousness? Are you a little snobby and like
Well,
it's I know this movie's better than
I don't know if that
Fast
is
5?
necessarily it, because
Okay.
I show you a lot of movies that I dearly love and you think that they're ridiculous. But I think I'm interested in like human relationships. I like to see how people
Hmm.
interact with each other. And I do like when the main characters or even all of the characters in a situation are unlikable.
Hmm.
And I read a lot of books like that too that other people really don't like for those reasons.
Hmm.
And I think that might be part of the buy-in for me is I like to watch movies and read about kind of terrible people.
Is it the combination of, that like character type in addition to a setting like this one, like 1950s London and the music and all of that really fits together well and like makes this one big like cohesive experience?
Yeah, I would say so. It just combines a lot of the things that I enjoy. I like the time period, like being completely immersed in it, and the setting I do enjoy, and I like that a lot of it is contained to like these small spaces within their world.
Hmm.
But I do think like the big thing for me is the character dynamic.
Hmm.
The other stuff just kind of makes it perfect. But if I had to pick like one big thing out of it, it is the relationship between Reynolds and Alma, and the way that sometimes it seems like so transparent and you can just kind of pick them apart and, like psychoanalyze them and really feel like you understand them. But then in the next scene, everything flips and
Yeah.
it's hard to understand. And I really enjoy feeling close to a character, but then also still feeling like there's a lot that I still don't know about them.
Yeah, that's a good point. I think there's a lot of scenes in this that come to mind where I'm watching one of them or both of them and trying to just trying to understand what they're thinking. Like,
Mhm.
which way is this conversation about to go? Like, with Reynolds specifically, he's kind of bipolar. Like, sometimes he could be pleasant. I don't know if pleasant's the word, but like,
Tender is what she calls him.
yeah, tender. And then other times he's condescending. I remember specifically, it's the scene where at the end where he's eating the meal that she prepares for him. And even I'd seen it before, and we talked before we even watched the movie again. I'm like, the only scene I really remember is she does this and he acts this way. But still, as I was watching it, like seeing the looks on their faces, and I think this is like Daniel Day-Lewis is one of the greatest actors of all time for a reason. Like, I think people have always said that, and I'm always like, well, what does that mean? Like, I don't have an acting background. How do you know good acting whenever you see it? But it is. I'm watching that scene. I've seen it before, and I'm still like, what's he thinking? What's he gonna say here? Does he like go through with this? And
Yeah.
they like both of them are just testing each other in that scene. And
Yeah,
it's
that
the
is
eye
what
contact that they're
is so
making.
perfect. It's so perfect because it hones back in on like the entire thing of their relationship. Like every other conversation, I feel like you're like, okay, who's in control here? And then there's one line and
Mm-hmm.
you know. But with that one,
Mm-hmm.
when he's like holding up the fork, he puts the food in his mouth and he kind of is just sitting there, not chewing, looking at her. And he's saying like, I know what you're trying to do to me. And it's like, is he going to
Mm-hmm.
let her? And like that puts him in control. But then what he says to her at the end, I feel like he's kind of giving up his control to her.
Yeah, but in a way, like that gives him control.
I know, that's what is so good about it. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. I think that scene specifically is like, I think every scene in this movie almost is so similar. Like every scene is that scene, just in a different way. Like it is the power dynamics, the struggle, the controlled chaos. Another scene is the surprise dinner scene. We talked about the
Yeah.
Alma cereal conversation earlier, but after that, like whenever he does show up and they have that dinner, he just acts like a big fucking baby.
Yeah.
And I
It's
think it is because the surprise took his control away from him. He was not in control of the situation. He's like, I gotta take it back. And he just starts going off the cuff with some of the most absurd accusations.
Yeah. And the thing about that too is when he's like yelling these questions, who are you? Do you have a gun? Things like that, is he keeps what he believes outwardly kind of keeps his composure. And she's obviously crying. She throws her fork down. And he feels like he's winning because it's making her look quote unquote hysterical.
Yeah.
Although she's having a valid human emotion in response to like doing a big thing for this man that she's trying to show he loves him, and he's kind of just throwing everything back in her face. And it's how he wins in that moment by saying all of these crazy things but remaining still and keeping a straight face, even kind of laughing off the situation.
Mm-hmm.
And I felt like, oh my gosh, I have seen men act like this before. It just felt too real.
Not at our house, right?
No.
Okay.
But just in general, it's just it's a classic control move, and I felt so bad for her. And then it made me feel like that for her. So when she goes and gets the mushrooms and stuff, I'm like, and look what led her to do this.
Yeah.
Like I understood where she's coming from.
It is. He does do everything. Like even when he is behaving as a child, and when he's behaving as this like world-renowned dressmaker, he has this quiet confidence to him. Like even when he's acting like a baby, he's giving it 100%, and he's like,
Yeah.
I'm right because I know I'm right, and it doesn't matter what else happens. And another scene I wanted to talk about that I loved was when she goes out for New Year's Eve, and she says like, I want to go out, I want to go dancing. And we know that Brian Gleason's there.
Yeah,
I'm happy I recognize that was him, but
the doctor.
um yeah, she knows he's there, and so part of it's like there was a scene earlier where that old lady Baltimore is
Mhm.
saying like, "Oh, I think he fancies your wife," and so part of it's like, okay, is she going to go there to be with him, and like maybe she's trying to
Right.
get some loving from the doctor, and we have to sit with. We know she's left and gone to this New Year's Eve party, and you see him caring about it.
Mhm.
And what I love about that scene is up until the final moment, like even when he goes there and he's standing in front of her, it could be like a very beautiful romantic action, and maybe it is, and then it turns into like control where he's grabbing her and pulling her away. And
Mhm.
like all he had to do at that moment was kiss her or embrace her or do something. But by him just grabbing her and pulling her away, it like he took all of the power back.
Yeah.
Even though like I feel like the minutes leading up to that, it could have just as easily been like he's finally like in love with her, like he misses her and
Mhm.
just wants to be with her, and he sees her dancing and he's worried that she's going to get hurt when the fight breaks out. But then it does turn into the control thing.
Yeah, and I feel like with that scene too is like the first time we see him show affection to her when he's not sick or has just gotten better.
Mhm.
He's like fine, he's working, and he even says he wants to keep working all night,
Mhm.
whatever. And he's completely, in perfect health and still goes to her. And I thought that was interesting too. I felt like it was like the first time I actually believed that he cared about her, not
Mhm.
just he liked the feeling of her taking care of him.
But did he go because he cared about her, or did he go because she was in control when she got up and left and he wanted control back? He wanted to take her back home.
True. Yeah, I think that is true. But I think she
Mhm.
hadn't like exactly asserted her control in that way before by leaving. She'd
Yeah.
always asserted her control by, you know, being there even more.
Yeah, I think also whenever she leaves, it's one of the first times that like we even see him alone on
Hmm.
screen. He's always like even when he's making the dresses, he has the workers there with him or his sister um or Alma there. But then she leaves and it's silent and he's just sitting there alone, and I feel like that was a very powerful like filmmaking decision to like
Hmm.
leave him alone in that moment and just let us focus on his emotions.
Yeah. Yeah, the only other time that I can remember him being alone is before he meets her when he's going to the restaurant. Yeah. And then he ends up, taking her home from there. So,
Yeah. Um, I wanted to talk about the dresses or the
yeah.
wardrobe. Actually, first I'll discuss some of the accolades that this movie had. So,
Oh, okay.
in 2017, the National Board of Review chose it as one of the top 10 films of the year, and it's widely considered one of the best films of the 2010s. At the 90th Academy Awards, it was nominated for Best Picture, Best Director, Best Actor, Best Supporting Actress for Leslie Manville, who plays Cyril,
Okay.
and then Best Original Score, and it only won for Best Costume Design. So
Interesting. Okay.
that's what gets me to Best Costume Design. I don't know enough of. It's kind of like when we saw The Brutalist. Like I don't know enough about architecture to like
Hmm.
understand like the style of the architecture or appreciate it. I don't know anything about dresses, but there were like some great dresses in this that I really liked.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask you, do you have any movies that come to mind when you think of the wardrobe or the costumes like um anything that you're like, okay, this is an iconic. I remember these costumes. I'll give an example if it helps.
Yeah.
One for me, which I've only seen once, and I think you introduced me to, is Clueless.
Okay.
I
Yeah,
think,
those are very like notable, like noteworthy costumes, I would say.
yeah, and it's in a much different way than this is.
Hmm.
Like this, you need those costumes because we have like a world-renowned dressmaker, so like
Right.
obviously the dress have to be great, but Clueless does it in a different way where it's like it kind of shows the class
Yeah,
of
yeah, exactly. It like
yeah.
kind of outwardly accentuates the stereotypes that it's discussing in the
Yeah.
high school setting.
Do you have any examples, any that you can think of?
I have a few. The first movie that came to mind was Marie Antoinette with Kirsten
Okay.
Dunst.
I haven't seen it.
And there's like there is a scene of like them helping her get ready, and I think a lot of that has to do with kind of how it tries to modernize the story.
Mhm.
But I think the costumes in that are fun. Yeah, exactly. Most of the things I'm thinking of are period pieces. Like I was gonna say Anna Karenina. I really like
Mhm.
the costumes in that. I
Mhm.
don't know if they're accurate at all, but they're fun to look at. Then
Mhm.
a character that came to mind was um Penny Lane from Almost Famous. She has this like
Okay.
coat that she wears,
Yeah.
and I just feel like it's so in my world, it's so iconic.
That's a good option. If you like, is that the object that if you could take any clothing from any movie that like you put in your wardrobe, like it's yours, would you pick that?
Hmm. Maybe. I don't know if I could pull it off.
For some reason, after asking that question, the first thing that came to mind for me was Stone Cold Steve Austin's leather vest that he wears whenever he comes out. I don't
That
know
would
why. I
be
also couldn't pull that off, but
that would be interesting.
yeah, it would be pretty cool. Some movies that came to mind for me, one that I love is Funny Face,
Mm.
with Audrey Hepburn.
The
There's
like
a
cat suit or whatever she wears.
she does in one scene in that, but the premise behind that movie is they pick her to be a model, and they're like, oh, but she has a funny face. Like she's not. It's weird because she's gorgeous, but they're like, yeah, she's not like stereotypically pretty. This isn't what we normally go for. But they dress her up. There's like a 5 to 10 minute long scene where it's just like people trying on different costumes and like
Mm.
posing and doing stuff like that. And I absolutely love it. Another one is the Untouchables, Brian De Palma's movie. I think like all of the suits are like Giorgio Armani suits or something that they
Oh.
all wear. It's like a crime movie from the 20s or something like that. I also think I don't know why Greta Gerwig's Little Women also comes to mind. I think one
Yeah.
of the bonus features on the
Mhm.
Blu-ray had to do with the costumes, so that's probably one that came to mind for me. I don't know if they did anything special there compared to the other Little
Yeah, they
Women.
did. Like each sister has a color palette, and then
Hmm.
before they're brighter, and then like the present they're duller.
Oh, that's kind of cool.
Hmm. At least that's what I
Um,
remember.
okay. Another example I thought of with a movie that's right up your alley is Spencer.
Oh my gosh, yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's a beautiful movie.
Oh, it is.
Pablo Larraín directed. Another one that came to mind that we watched recently over Christmas season is Carol.
Okay, yeah, I agree with that as well.
The way that Kate Blanchett
Mhm.
dresses in that is really good. And then the last one that came to mind was In the Mood for Love.
Mm.
I think the colors in most of Wong Kar-wai's films are notable anyways, but
Mhm.
that's one that I remember like she wears that green dress. He's always wearing like fancy suits and looks cool,
Mhm.
so
Yeah, those are good
yeah.
picks. The Carol one
Thank you.
reminded me of not a movie, but like Mad Men costume,
Okay,
like kind of
yeah.
like
Yep.
the very tailored
Hmm.
look. Yeah, I do really like that.
If you could go back in time, like what era would you be what era clothing would you be wearing?
Um, I probably wouldn't want to go live back in time, so just maybe the
Well, no,
90s.
it's it's just the clothing.
I still think probably just the 90s. I don't know.
Yeah.
Like I don't it's nice to look at, but it doesn't seem a lot of it doesn't seem practical.
I think I would do like this is also the time that I would pick to live, but like the 50s. I'm trying to be drinking a milkshake. I want to be driving
Your
my
like
car
sleeves
to
rolled up under the
yeah,
t-shirt.
white t-shirt under it. I got my hair slicked back. Obviously, I'd have like long dark hair at this time.
Right. You just look
Um,
completely different.
yeah, ripping cigs all the time. Like
Oh,
that's what I would be doing.
okay. I do
Yeah.
think like maybe I don't know. I don't know what time period this is because I'm not great with stuff like that. But
Mhm.
like young Cher when she had like the super long hair, and I loved all of her outfits back then. So maybe I would just want to do swap with her. I would be Cher when she
Okay.
was younger.
Nice. So I wanted let's go back to talking about Phantom Thread, specifically Paul Thomas Anderson. So his movies don't make a lot of money at
Oh,
all.
okay.
They're typically critically acclaimed, but not a lot of people go and see them. Um, I had the thought that like his movies to me, even if I don't want to say like them, but like on first go, if I don't appreciate it, I'm still always like, it's a Paul Thomas Anderson movie. I know that what I'm watching is something different. Like even if you didn't tell me it was a Paul Thomas Anderson movie, I don't know if I'd be able to like pick it out like, oh, these techniques that he does are like his other movies. Like I don't know him that well, but I do think I would be like there's something different about the feel of this movie. And it kind of took me to if we go to like an art museum or something like that, whenever I see like a Van Gogh or a Monet, like I don't know the what makes those people important. Even if I'm just walking through the halls or whatever, and I'm like, oh, this one looks cool, this one looks cool, and then you get into a room and like you see one on the far wall, and you're like, oh my gosh, like look at the something about that just feels different. Like I got to go look at this one, and then you go look at the little plaque next to it, and it's like Monet did this, and um, and I'm like, oh
You just
shit,
said
like
Monet did this.
yeah, Monet did this, and I'm like, oh, like I get why he's so famous. I get
Mhm.
why I know the name. And I feel like Paul Thomas Anderson movies are like that for me, where it is just something about the way it looks and it feels. I'm not saying he's the Monet of film directors or anything, but it is of a different caliber to a lot of the stuff next to it that whenever I
Mhm.
see it, I'm like, oh, like something's going on different here. I don't know what it is, but I can appreciate it. And that's kind of why I assume the critics like this more than an audience would is like even if I don't love the movie per se, like I'm still going to appreciate it
Mhm.
more because it does have a different feeling to it to me.
Yeah, I understand that. I think that like maybe there is something like not that other movies aren't, but that his movies are like artsy in a
Mm.
way. I do think like with this one specifically, it feels very like plain.
So we talked about afterwards that there was no credit for cinematographer on this movie.
Mhm.
There's one that said
Camera
like a
lighting or something.
yeah like camera lighting director or something like that.
Mhm.
And so I looked it up and it was like Paul Thomas Anderson and him collaborated in place of their typical cinematographer that they would use. And I saw like a quote from that cinematographer from is like 3 years afterwards. They asked him like, "Did you like the way it looked?" And he's like, "No, I think if I did it, it would have looked a lot better than that." And he said, "I can tell all that they did because they didn't know how to get the feeling they want was puffed a bunch of smoke into the room to give it like
Mm,
this film feel to it." So I thought it was interesting that like after the movie, I was still like, "Oh my gosh, like yeah, it looked beautiful. Like I like
mhm.
the colors and everything. Like it has like the film grain on it, but it is interesting to hear like from someone's perspective who is a cinematographer and like a very good one at that that they're like,
Right.
"Oh, that looked like shit. Like I could have done that a lot
Mhm.
better."
Yeah, I guess that is probably fair enough, but I think it wasn't just necessarily the way it looked, but it was just like how things were framed and like how the camera
Mhm.
moved and stuff too.
Mhm.
I think like specifically the scene where Cyril's like walking around the table, when they're trying to fix the wedding dress. And
Yeah.
it's like I really like that and you see them all working on like a different section of the dress and her
Mhm.
looking over them. I I think it was just the set too, like in the workshop or wherever where they're
It
making the
feels
dresses and
appropriate
stuff.
to call it a manor for some reason.
A manor. I don't know if it's
Yeah,
a
because like
manor.
he lives there, so like it's not just a workshop. You say workshop, I'm like, yeah, it's
It's a
whatever. And it's
townhouse.
well, it's a manor. In a manner of speaking is
Yeah,
how I would
right,
call
right.
it. Yeah, I know what you mean. I think there was one scene, and it's always easy to talk about or it's always hard to talk about in hindsight, like without having the actual movie up and being able to pause it or anything like that. But I think most scenes, like everything feels so closed. Like there's stuff behind them, even if it's a blank wall or something like that. It's so closed. But then when they first meet, they're out in this like beautiful landscape, and it feels so open behind them, and you get to like, kind of breathe. It's not as claustrophobic.
Yeah.
And then after that, like once we get into their actual power dynamics where they're like fighting back and forth, there is just like the feeling of like a closedness that like the only important thing is this battle between the two or three people sometimes on screen, and it's not just like this big open
Yeah.
experience.
I liked a lot of the shots like when they're eating breakfast and it is like very contained to just that side of the table that they're sitting on. And
Mhm.
even when you see like the table through the door, you only see that section of it and we don't get to see the rest of the room really. And I think that's
Yeah.
interesting because it is really just about them. It's not about where they are or what they're doing per se, but it's about the dynamic between the two or three people in the room.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good point. At the beginning of the movie, he's talking about his dead mom, and he's like, "Oh, Mama would love to be here." I think if someone refers, it's one of my pet peeves when someone's like talking about their mom, and they're like, "Yeah, Mom told me I could do this," and I'm like, "I don't know your mom. Why are you calling her mom? My mom's name is Mom." I think if someone refers to someone as Mama like that, not my Mama, I want to punch them in the mouth. As soon as he did it, I was like, I fucking
Okay.
hate this guy.
Yeah, he did some really questionable stuff regarding moms, like first date, where's the picture of your mom? Oh, you need to keep
Yeah.
that on you. My mom's hair is actually here with me right
It's
now in the
sewn
room.
into my jacket. Yeah.
Yeah, and you like for me, I was like, okay, she's gonna match his freak on this one because she doesn't immediately get up and leave the room,
Yep.
which is what
Yep.
personally I would have done.
You didn't at our first date. I had a lock of my mom's hair. You thought it was cool.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he's got that thing where he's in love with his mom. I'll tell you that much.
Mm-hmm.
Um, he calls Cyril my old so and so,
You
and I
hated
did look it
that.
up. I know, I did look it up. It is a compliment. It is like a term of endearment, but it feels so mean. Like I would never
Mm-hmm.
call you my old so and so. First
I
saying
would hope
old
not. Yeah.
in general.
Mhm.
But so and so, it's like I can't remember their name. So and so says blah. Um,
Yeah,
yeah,
I
it
don't
felt
know.
disrespectful. I thought like maybe it was meant to be an insult, and that's kind of him showing his power over her.
Mm,
But
I don't
no,
know.
it didn't seem like it. It does seem like it's a term of endearment.
Yeah.
Another s- scene/phrase. I think it's a phrase that he said that I loved was when she's buttering the toast and it's really loud and he's very dramatic as he always is, like with the "Have you brought a gun? Where's
Yeah.
your gun?" Is he's like it's as if you'd ridden a horse across the room.
Yeah.
And I'm like, dude, she's just buttering her toast.
Oh my gosh. The sound of her buttering the toast was perfect as well. Because I was like, there are a lot of times when it's just honing in on her eating. Like at the end when she's like biting the spoon
Yeah.
and she's like biting the stuff off the spoon. I was like, I kind of understand where he's coming from a little bit at,
Well,
at this time.
I if you're mad at someone and then
Yeah.
you have to eat next to them, like every little thing they do, like I guarantee there's so many times that like we've sat across from each other at the dinner table and I'm like struggling to cut something and you're just like, Jesus Christ, just fucking pick it up and eat it with your hands. Like when you're mad at someone and you have to eat right next to them, it's a different type of angry.
Yeah.
So yeah, I like that scene, and I also thought it was funny the very next time that they are eating together, it intentionally shows her like that she's eating toast, and it's silent. It's
Yeah.
dead silent.
She's like moving much slower and careful
Yeah.
not to disturb him.
And then one person I hated in this was the Barbara Rose character, the drunk rich bitch that like he ends up taking the dress away from.
Oh, gosh.
I feel bad for her.
It was obviously a terrible situation.
Yeah. But I think that was one where she like kind of took control of his business, like how we said Cyril like does the business thing, but Cyril would have been like, no, we can't. Like, we do business with her. She bought this manor for us that we do all the work
for the
in.
house, yeah.
Yeah, we can't take it away. But Alma's like, no, your clothes deserve better than that. They're not fit for someone who's like passing out drunk in the middle of a party. Like,
Yeah.
I'm ripping those clothes off of you. And I think that was kind of a difference making moment in their relationship. But then again, like, I say difference making, but still there were so many times after that where they have this power for control where he wants to break up with her or divorce her even because they do get married. The only thing that seems to fix it is whenever his life is in danger.
Yeah. But I do think her doing those things, like especially taking the dress back, I think it allows her to kind of like wedge herself in his life a little bit more so that he doesn't send her away. Because we see him do that to someone in the beginning of the movie. And then we even, like, Cyril asks him at breakfast, do you want me to get rid of Alma? And he's like, no, why would you say that? And I think that wouldn't be his reaction if she hadn't, done some of those things for him.
Yeah, that's true. The last thing I wanted to point out to that point is I think both of them, I think something we did early on in our relationship is take the love language test.
Oh, yeah.
I think both of them, their love language is acts of service. But his love language is like he wants to receive acts of service. Like he wants to be babied. And then she wants to baby him or whatever. Like she wants to be in charge and treat him, I guess.
Yeah.
Do you disagree?
I do definitely agree that that's like a aspect of it. I don't know if that's completely it because I'm not completely sold on the idea that she just wants to like mother him.
I do keep saying that, but I do think it's kind of a simplification of how I'm seeing her control, and it is just because like he obviously like has that weird thing with his mother, and so it is a way for me to kind of compare the two. Like she doesn't want to be baby, like she doesn't want to be taken care of,
or she does in a different way, I guess.
How so?
She just wants him to love her.
Yeah, that's true. One last thought that just hit me was when she does make that surprise dinner for him, it is literally just asparagus.
I'm not sure that we got to see the whole meal, but the asparagus definitely did not go over well. So I don't think we got to continue to see like maybe there was a main course.
I don't know. People were doing it different in the 50s.
Buttered asparagus can really kill the mood.
Yep. And imagine buttered asparagus. I can't believe it. I'll only eat asparagus with oil.
Oil and like as much salt as humanly possible.
Yeah.
I think the scene that it kind of happens a couple of times in the movie where she's talking to the doctor about her relationship with Reynolds.
Yeah,
and they're sitting there.
And you don't know at first who she's talking to.
Right. But it just kind of solidified for me kind of how aware she is in the things that she's doing. She believes that they need each other and that they need to do or she at least needs to do these things to him to keep their relationship moving towards the correct path. I loved that. I loved that she kind of is like voicing it in a way that's like very earnest and not at all like she's not trying to shy away from the fact that she wants these certain things from him and she knows how to make them happen. And I just thought that was interesting.
I thought it was, I couldn't tell is the doctor in on it now to where like he knows she's poisoning him and he's like, I'll still be here to check it out. Like if anything really bad happens, like I'm here. I guess like how, what a weird comparison. How like Michael Jackson's doctor, like It was like, yeah, like I'll give him drugs, but like let's make sure he's not gonna kill himself doing all these drugs. But then
Well,
obviously did too many drugs. You don't love that comparison.
I'm not gonna touch on that situation.
Okay.
But I'm not sure that he completely understands. I feel like maybe in a way he's just kind of like, you guys have something going on here, and I don't really need to know more as long as he's not dying.
Yeah, that makes sense. It's like when like your friend's sex lives. Like I don't want to know what's going on there, but as long as we're all being safe and no one's unwillingly being hurt, like do your own thing. I'm here when
Yeah.
you need a friend, though.
Yeah, it's like we can keep some stuff to ourselves as long as everybody's safe and happy in your own way.
Yeah.